It's that time, and the boys are back in town. Welcome in. It's the first ever episode of Lock Talk. My name's Jake O'Kane. I'm here with my boy Joey, and we are just beyond excited to be joining you. A long time coming. For those of you that listen back to Ball Sacks and Hardwood in the spring, we may have teased a thing or two, and then obviously a few hints here and there, but we made it official. And we got a lot of good support from different platforms that we're able to post on now. We'll be on Pandora's version. We'll be on iHeartRadio, Spotify. Wow. We get a lot of different ways to get it out there. Still working on Apple. Apple is kind of being dicks, not going to lie. But we'll get over that. It is what it is. Joey, let's first talk our name, Lock Talk. For those that don't know, is a playoff of a certain company that you had started a few years ago. Explain Lock Talk and the app to everybody and what that kind of has evolved to now with a podcast.
Yeah, so that app, Apple also gave us a bunch of shit, so you're not the only one. Welcome to the tech world, man. So yeah, Lock Talk, that's our platform. It's essentially gambling Twitter streamlined. It's awesome. You want to be in there all year long, but especially this coming month, towards the end of the month, once college football kicks off. And then NFL kicks off right after that. It's going to be fun. It's going to be a bunch of people tossing around good locks, bad locks, everything in between, really shitty locks. Those are my favorite to look at after. O'Kane, man, you're one of the best users we have. We love your shit. We love your paragraphs on paragraphs. I read them all thoroughly. I take some of them. I fade others. Sometimes I just don't even act on them.
That's fair.
But anyway, it's great. It's a good time. And this is going to be a fun ass show. We're going to have a lot of cool people coming on and sharing their thoughts too. So everyone stay tuned.
Yeah, there are a few interesting names coming in.
Yeah.
I actually texted Joey last week. First off, as far as some people that you may know, as far as this community goes, Ben Carey is going to be on to help preview the AFC West. Ben Carey in Capwise, definitely a guy you need to follow on Twitter, on Instagram, TikTok. He's on everything. I mean, the guy's an absolute workhorse. Also, Uncle Gino from Bet Openly is going to come on. He's going to talk NFC West. I'm going to really grill him on why the 49ers are not my daddy, but they definitely are.
Right.
And then a little bit of a wild card. One that did not see coming, a young man, Sammy Adams. For those of you remember, rap star from the mid 2010s, I guess.
Yeah, man.
And still an artist today. Also, degenerate gambler, and we are beyond excited to have him join as well. Running down today's episode. So today's episode is going to be a little bit different. Obviously, gambling is going to be the main thing we talk about during the season. Right now, there's plenty of futures to be had. We'll have those. We've got a few weeks yet to get into those. This is our recap. There's a lot of shit that goes on throughout the offseason, and it's not easy to remember everything. We're going to start the show off going to division from division in the NFL, touching on some things that happen spring to summer. Then we're going to take some of the top league stories. We'll kind of go off, talk about there's been, let's be real, Joey, we talked about it. There's a lot of shit that went on this offseason. It was a blast.
Crazy amount of stuff, man. It was, as is every offseason. And, it's that time of summer where it's like, wow, baseball's kind of getting a little bit boring. It's kind of heating up, but we just need a little something else.
And like I said, when I got the date wrong for Hard Knocks, I said, I'm just ready to hear the pads thump, man. And I'm just ready for it. But after we talk about that, to wrap up the NFL portion of the show, we've actually got a decent amount of rule changes. We've got new faces, people who retired, a whole bunch of stuff. There's so much to go through. We're going to try to cram it into about an hour. Probably will go over because we do got to talk college football. College football offseason. We'll go through some of the national storylines, mini little deep dive into the portal. Obviously, a lot of names changing in the portal. We tried to dwindle it down to some guys that actually you may know. There's still going to be guys on there. We're definitely going to be doing that thing at some point where it's just dudes naming players. and it's going to feel that way. But just bear with us.
Oh, yeah.
It gets better. Trust me, there's going to be more
yeah.
gambling involved, but this is for you guys. There's a lot that goes on in the off season. We're going to talk coaches as well. There's plenty of coaching carousel, but first we got to start in the NFL, and we're going to start in the AFC West. Joey, tell me about the AFC West, man. It's got to be one of the most exciting divisions in football. What happened in the offseason?
Wow. A couple quarterback changes. One guy from the NFC West going to that team in Vegas that I still call Oakland. I see them being one of the worst teams in the league. That's the Raiders. I really do. I think even with the the rumors swirling around Devontae Adams right now, I don't think anything is going to go well for them this season. I was never a Jimmy G hater, but I was never a full truther. I was kind of like always, this guy can get it done. But at this point in his career with a team, an organization that, fails a lot of people, I just don't see them being a force in that division. That's a really good division, handsomely paid quarterbacks across that division. Herbert just got the bag. So I'm just going to start at the bottom. I think it's going to be the Raiders. Not much else to it. They have a pretty mediocre roster, top to bottom, and mediocre coaching, management, leadership, all of that. I just don't see it really panning out well for that team this year. So I'll keep it short with them. That's really what I think there. Denver is probably the most interesting team because of the whole coaching change there. Sean Payton, who's a bong-ripping douchebag, is running his mouth a lot.
I think Ben's gonna combat that. Apparently, we might have got bamboozled by the internet.
Yeah, definitely. I don't know. I only looked.
Regardless, I'd like to think that it's Sean Payton. I like to think of my quarterback.
Yeah,
Super Bowl winning coaches to be ripping bongs and to be hanging with very, very young dudes. You're the man. Yeah, you are. You're the man.
That's the most interesting part of the video. The bong ripping is one thing. I mean, he's a Colorado resident now. That's totally legal. That's very fine. Legal. Whatever. Rip as much bong as you want. But I'm guessing that's his son and his friends in the video. But
you would hope that it's not just
I would hope it's not just like a neighbor or something who's inviting him over to rip some bong. But anyway, you'd think that after ripping some bong, you'd maybe be a little bit more relaxed. But he's been saying some shit lately. So anyway, I think the whole Sean Payton, Russell Wilson pairing is really interesting. Obviously, the last season was a disaster. Anytime they were televised, which was about every week, especially to start the season, they were putting up 9 points a game, all off field goals. I feel like, it was boring, bad, underwhelming, all of that. But
it was Big Ten football.
It was
Iowa,
Big Ten football. Northwestern. It was so bad. It was so bad.
It was the 4-inch grass in Evanston on 11 a.m. in the middle of November.
Yeah, exactly. It was a whole lot of punting, some field goals. And that guy's been a fun quarterback and successful guy to watch for so many years. So I think with the coaching change, I don't know what their odds are now. I can scroll, look right here to win the division, that is. But definitely don't sleep on them after that year they had last year. I mean, that was crazy, but that could be a fluke of a shitty year. They're currently plus 495 to win the division. Obviously, you have the powerhouse KC, and then an underrated Chargers team. So that's what I think about Denver. On to the Chargers, plus 270 to win the division. All right, the Chiefs are going to win the division, right? They're minus 175. I'm not going to lay that. I don't know how many people are, but
I ate the poop last year on the Chargers, so it's fine. I bet them to win the division. They didn't.
I mean, similar thing. They've kind of just underwhelmed the past few years. I know they were a playoff team. But, what was their last loss? The playoff loss against Jacksonville. They blew like a 28-point lead or something. So
it was ugly. It was very Charger. I mean, the Chargers chargered. That's their MO forever. That's all I've ever known is the Chargers charging.
Football, it was the Phillip Rivers, LaDainian Tomlinson, Antonio Gates. They had that crazy defense. And it was like, they're going to win every year. They're going to take down the Pats or the Colts. And they just never got it done. And the Chiefs might be the Pats or the Colts of the mid 2000s to this Chargers team. So, Herbert's awesome. They got a good young team, I think, all around. They drafted the TCU guy first round. They got a good receiving core. Eckler, he's a stud. But Chiefs are still going to be top dog, it looks like. That doesn't mean the Chargers won't have a good season, won't be a wild card team, but I'm not going to overthink it. I just think the Chiefs are going to just walk away with that one. Will there be two wild cards? What do you think?
That's a great question, because I mean, obviously, if it's going to happen, it's going to be Denver, Chargers, and
right.
Kansas City. I mean, obviously, I think we both think the same about Vegas. It's definitely a division. We talked briefly before we hopped on here. I said it's definitely one of the most interesting. It's got to be probably one of the best when it comes to winning percentage. Because even though the Vegas isn't great, they're a team that will probably beat some other bad teams.
Right.
But it's going to be really tough for them to push Kansas City. And that was my question I had on our little outline that we wrote. Can Kansas City repeat? We haven't seen a repeat in a while. It'd be obviously Patrick Mahomes after we all watched quarterback one, or not quarterback one. It was just quarterback. And the guy's the best football player on the planet. And I don't think it's that close. And as long as he's there, I have a hard time picking against them. So I totally agree. I think you laid $165 on them. Obviously, it's a lot it's kind of an annoying investment. I probably wouldn't do it. But it's definitely, in my opinion, the right bet. If you're going to look, trust me, I said it before, I ate the bait on last year. I think it was even worse. I think it was only plus 225. So now you get $3 bills on it. If you want to take the Chargers, you can. What was Denver? I just had it up. Denver's plus 500.
I'm seeing right around there.
As much as I'd love to believe in Sean Payton, and I do like some of the moxie that he's come with. Obviously, some of it is very out of pocket. Let's not call it what it isn't. But some of it is very true. Last year's team was horrible. Trust me, I've seen Nathaniel Hackett when things are bad. Being a Packer fan, it was as bad as it's ever gotten. But to think that they could make the jump and win the division feels a little, it feels like a little much first year, maybe second year, maybe the Chiefs eventually think salary cap catches up to them. I'm not a capologist, so I don't know. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of how I feel about the AFC West. I think we're both on board with Chiefs. I think you could go either way. You can make an argument for Denver or Chargers in second and third, and then you finish it up with Vegas. I mean, but if there was a team out of LA or out of Denver that you think, like, who do you think?
Well, I want to say Chargers, but I'm not totally out on Denver. They got a good team, and Russell Wilson, it's not like he's old or he had some crazy injuries. I know he's had some injury history, but it's not like that was slowing him down. He just sucked. He was just
and he looked, and honestly, looking at pictures of him in camp this year, he looked fat last year. He's slimmed down. He's gotten back to a little bit more svelte. We'll probably see him get a little bit. He wasn't very mobile last year. We've watched him be mobile for years, and he wasn't. So we won't get too into the AFC West. Obviously, we're trying to be brief with it, but like I said, probably one of the most interesting divisions in football. I'm super excited to talk to Ben Carey about it. He's obviously more ingratiated with that division and is going to have a really good angle on it. So we're going to talk to him. He'll be on next week's episode when we get a little bit more of a deep dive into the AFC West. I'm going to take the AFC South here. The Texans. We're going to start with the Texans, kind of doing the same thing. I'm going to work backwards. Obviously, you get CJ Stroud. That's great. What do you do to get people around him? They actually did a decent job. They went and they signed Robert Woods. They did give Sheldon Rankins, D-tackle, terrible one-year deal, in my opinion. Made Laramie Tunsil highest paid tackle in football. Had to do it. And then you see him get guys like Dalton Schultz and Devin Singletary. So in my opinion, for as inept of a front office as the Texans have had for years, it does feel like they kind of worked themselves into at least a playable roster. I watched Texan games last year. I don't know how many you caught. It was a who's who of guys that could be playing in the USFL, could be in the XFL, but they're playing football on Sundays. And it was it was very gross.
Right.
It was not a good team.
I know they had Brandon Cooks last year, but I remember the Giants game. They had some no-name receiver put up a pretty decent stat line because they didn't really have many guys to throw to. But I do agree with you. I think they had a good offseason. I was a CJ Stroud believer the whole time, so I think that was a great pick. And then they, took the Bama guy, the next pick, the edge guy, Anderson. I was blanking on his name there for a second, but I think they had a good draft there. People are forgetting about Dameon Pierce. He had a really solid,
he did
start, and for most of the season, I think probably the first 3 quarters of that season, he was balling. So he's a great running back. If they put more pieces together and, more pieces on defense, they're going to be good. Once again, not the prettiest division here, but I don't think this is really ever a powerhouse division. It's probably the weakest in the
historically
league,
yeah, there's definitely a stat out there for that. And
yeah,
I mean, I'm trying to think of Super Bowls outside of Indianapolis, and I'm drawing a blank because I don't think there is one.
I mean, maybe the Titans late 90s, there was one, but again,
no, definitely not.
But
one thing I do want to say about the Texans that definitely pertains to this show. Nicholas Petit Frere, and I believe I'm pronouncing that correctly, the Frenchman of some sort, how made his way into the NFL. He's getting a 6-game suspension. He violated the league's gambling policy. Not good. We're going to get into a few other names, and there are some bigger stories than Mr. Petit Ferreira, and I'm excited to talk about it because I got some opinions. I'm going to move on to the next team. I'm going to talk Titans. Titans fans, I will give you this. You got DeAndre Hopkins. Congratulations. You win the sweepstakes, 2-year deal. He can be paid a max of $15 million this year. So kudos. You had the money to pay the guy. Not a lot of people did. You opened up the money for him, and they kind of made it of, hey, you got to at least be good to get the money, which good for them. But there's only one question in Tennessee that I care about. Joey, who the fuck's playing quarterback in Tennessee?
Right. Damn. I mean, is it going to be Will Levis? Is it going to be Tannehill? It's going to be Tannehill. But he can get the job done. That doesn't mean he's going to be stellar, but he can be a formidable starter for, a whole season, I think. I'm seeing them at plus 285 to win the division outright. They have the second best chance according to the books here.
It's disgusting.
Again, not a pretty division at all, but they have a much better chance than the Colts, it looks like. Tannehill's been around for a while. They haven't had any shakeups really with the coaching, I don't think. I know they kind of fired their GM at the end of the last season.
GM's gone, but coaching, Vrabes is still very there. I mean, it's for me, the Titans, if you roll out Will Levis, I don't know. I mean, obviously then you're punting on Willis, which I already think they kind of might have done.
Yeah, it seems.
And you're paying Tannehill a lot of money. So to start a guy and bench a guy that you drafted high and bench the guy that you paid a lot of money to, it's going to take a lot of stones. Obviously, being a new GM, you think you want to make the fan base happy. I don't know how you make that fan base happy right now, other than winning football games, giving Derrick Henry as much money as he asks for. We'll get more into that here in a little bit with the running backs. But let me talk about the next one. The team that's been, in my opinion, making headlines for all the wrong reasons. It is the Indianapolis Colts. Both Isaiah Rodgers and Rashad Berry, they were waived. They got busted for gambling on games. And then their one big splash in free agency was they gave Matt Gay the largest contract ever to a free agent kicker. He got 4 years, $22.5 million. That's nuts. And then to top it off, we get the Jonathan Taylor saga. We'll talk more about Jonathan Taylor in a second, but let's just say Jonathan Taylor plays half the games for the Colts. I mean, Anthony Richardson, I've obviously great athlete, definitely not Cam Newton when Cam Newton was at that point. I mean, Cam Newton was a very good quarterback. I didn't see much from Richardson that told me that he was a good quarterback. He's a great athlete. Obviously, they took him high. Where do you see the Colts?
Yeah, I think the news lately has been, throwing everybody off. I have no idea what's going to happen with Jonathan Taylor. Um, I like Richardson a lot. I mean, will he, come out of the gates and, fire away right away? I don't think so. I think it'll take him some time, especially because he started, I don't even know how many games at Florida, but I don't think so many.
Not many.
But I do think, probably not this year, but in the next few years, they could be really exciting. That leads us to Jacksonville. I think Jacksonville, they're juicy too. They're minus 175 to win the division. If I was betting on it, I would lay that juice. But that's a team I'm pretty high on this year for the AFC as a whole. So I think this is the Trevor Lawrence breakout year. There you go. He's going to be thrown to a guy who also gambled a lot of money and had to take a year off. So
he did it before. It was cool.
Yeah, right. I mean, it's crazy. You can't just get your friends or family members, somebody else to do it. They have to do it themselves. But while we're on the topic, it's August 3rd. How many more guys are going to get busted before the season?
It seems like we're getting stuff every day. The one thing, and we'll talk about Iowa State in a little bit, because the Iowa State thing stemmed back into the NFL with a gentleman that we'll talk about in a few minutes, who is facing a little bit more serious than an NFL suspension. But
crazy.
You got to think that there's more names to fall out. Like you just said, there was a Iowa basketball player that just got named here today. Yeah. It just seems like there's a lot of the summer was boring for some federal agents, and they decided to pin in.
They tapped in a little bit harder.
Yeah, they definitely did. But yeah, when we're talking about the Jags, I think obviously 175. I'm not going to lay that. I would if I had to. Like you said, it is the pick, and I am surprised that it's under 200. But I guess obviously injuries happen. Good on them. Evan Ingram breaks out, gives him a franchise tag, so he'll get more money than he ever would have thought he had just this season. And I'm not worried about him as far as durability being more of a hybrid, being split out. He's not going to get the miles on his tires that you normally would.
Yeah.
So I think he's going to get his bag.
If there's
regardless.
any concern with him, it's drops, but we're just going to keep it short and sweet.
No, I agree.
Yeah,
I agree.
But a good team, man. Look at their offense. This is the year Trevor Lawrence really breaks out. They have a hell of a coach who's won a Super Bowl. He's in his second full year with them, right? So I think this is the year they take that step forward. I think they can make some noise in the playoffs. I know they got to the second round last year. They got to the divisional round. But, the AFC, you have the Chiefs, you have the Bengals, you have the Bills. Jags might knock off one of those teams in the playoffs. I think it's really going to heat up then. I do think they win this division, though. I think they have a really good year.
Yeah, I don't think there's anybody really going out there and saying with their chest, "Oh, I'm very sure Tennessee is going to be the best team." It's not. That's why it's a soft number. But yeah, I definitely think they're ready to make some noise in that one. Let's talk AFC North. Start me in Baltimore, Joey. Tell me what happened with Baltimore here.
Shit, man. They gave the bag to Lamar finally. This is an interesting team. They drafted Zay Flowers. I think he's going to be a weapon for them. OBJ kind of went under the radar a little bit, but I'll see, pictures or videos rather of him, snatching balls at practice and whatnot. Look, he's going on age, I want to say 31 season, off multiple really bad knee injuries and leg injuries and whatnot. I always loved the guy. I always rooted for the guy. He makes the offense a lot more dynamic. They have one of the better tight ends in the league. Rashad Bateman, will he finally stay healthy and break out this year? Maybe. J.K. Dobbins coming off that. He wasn't injured last year, but, I know he missed 2 seasons ago. Could he finally get healthy and make this offense really, take that full next step forward?
They haven't had it since Ray Rice. Haven't had it since Ray Rice.
Exactly. The Flacco Ray Rice days. We all remember that.
It took him to a Super Bowl.
Yeah. Joe Flacco went crazy that Super Bowl, that
and
playoff run.
that whole playoff run, he was next level. And that's what we got to see from Lamar is that he can do it in the playoffs.
Right.
You know what?
And
that's his number one thing.
Definitely. Pretty solid defense there. Obviously, the coaching's been there for a while. They have all the pieces. It's injuries and other BS that's kind of kept them, not being able to go that far. But if they could take down Cincinnati in the division, they can, I think they can definitely do that. I mean, looking now, they're plus 195. Bengals are plus 125. So nothing's too juicy there. Cleveland's at plus 315. I'll get to them soon. Steelers at plus 495. It's crazy because all these years, Steelers were, top dog, where they were vying with Baltimore, and then it was always like the Bengals and the Browns at the bottom. Time to turn. Times have changed. It's the Bengals to lose now, but the Ravens, they're going to be fighting this year. I'm really excited to see them. Lamar had that MVP season 2019, and since then it's contract, injuries, whatever. So I think there's no distractions this year unless Odell decides to be a prima donna and call someone out on Instagram Live or some shit.
You wouldn't know anything about that.
No, definitely not. So that's what he did to get out of Cleveland, or I think he got his pops to do that. But anyway, I think that's an exciting team, and they're not getting talked about enough. So.
No, well, and if you do like them, plus 2,000 to win the Super Bowl. That's one of those teams. That's a lot.
Whoa.
That's a lot.
Whoa.
Plus 2,000. We'll talk about that next. When we do our divisional breakdowns, it'll be more odds related. That's one that we are definitely circling back on because I for one feel very similar. They're a good team. Cincinnati. We were going to talk Cincinnati. They got Orlando Brown. They gave Joe Burrow the protection he needed. He got a $31 million signing bonus, which no one's ever got that as a lineman. Other than that, it was kind of a quiet offseason for the Bengals. They definitely, they're a team that it feels like are maybe like a defensive captain away. Their defense doesn't have that identity guy. Obviously on offense, you got Joe Burrow. He's your guy. Who's your guy on defense? Obviously they lost. And then that's the other thing. Their secondary got gutted this offseason. And it's not going to be, especially with the way that the Ravens improved on the outside, that's going to be a really tough matchup for them. It felt like Cincinnati's been the better team over the last few years in that one, especially. I think, in my opinion, it's swinging back to Baltimore. What do you think of Cincy?
I still really like them. I know they lost a couple guys on defense, but I don't think that'll affect them too much. Who is it? Bates, I think, went to Atlanta, the safety.
Yep.
So, I mean, that's a big loss for sure. It should definitely be talked about. But, one more year with all these guys, I think Joe Burrow's calf is okay. I haven't heard anything about Joe Mixon, and I know it's such a weird offseason for running backs. I don't know what his financial situation is, if he's under contract, if he's looking for a new contract, whatever. But
he's a guy that I remember being disgruntled at some point.
I feel like last year he was, but I remember Perine playing a lot last year, and Perine's, I think, with Denver now.
Yep.
But anyway, Cincinnati, I mean, I think Joe Burrow, he's an MVP candidate preseason. If you want to talk betting for a second, definitely I'm going to be eyeing that MVP future. Not that I even place many futures, but it's crazy. I think the Cincinnati versus Baltimore, all season long, that's going to be really interesting. Who's going to be at the top. But don't count out Cleveland either. So that's,
I hate to say it. I hate to say it as much as you got the nasty man in Cleveland. They committed just under $100 million to safety Juan Thornhill, D-end Obo Orokonwu, and Delvin Thompson. I mean, they really did a good job bolstering the defense, and it's not like they didn't touch the offense. Remember that guy, Elijah Moore? That didn't really work out for the New York Jets. He's a Brown. And I mean, they got him for a decent. I mean, they gave up a second and got a third. for me, it's a team that got better in a division where you have to keep up. And it felt like Cincinnati didn't make that step where Cleveland did. And whether it's going to be enough of a step to catch up to Cincinnati, maybe. What do you think? Do you think Cleveland has that 9-10 win groove in them?
I do. I haven't looked at their schedule to really analyze that enough, but I mean, they definitely, if Watson returns to, how he was playing pre all the bullshit that was going on the past few years, I mean, they could be really dangerous. I think the Elijah Moore pickup was great. He was awesome when he was, really shining for the Jets 2 years ago as a rookie. And Amari Cooper was one of the better receivers in the league last year. He's great. He's still great. And I mean, I think arguably the best running back in the league in Chubb. So
I think they also got one guy that ran under the radar, and I bet a ton of his yardage overs for receiving. David Njoku.
I thought you were going to say DPJ.
Oh, no. David Njoku is sneaky. They set the line 30-40, and the guy clears 60 on a regular basis. I bet a lot of Browns games because I was betting Jacoby Brissett a lot.
Oh, yeah.
It was kind of my thing. But David Njoku is a guy that once Brissett went out, he kind of became my cash cow. We'll look at his season totals because I know him. And then I forgot to mention it earlier, Trevor Lawrence sitting around 4,000 yards. That's another one that we'll talk about coming up with the betting previews for divisions. But the last team and the one that we talked about has been in definitely our lifetimes, the most consistent team in the AFC North. It's the Steelers. They signed Patrick Peterson, Ogden Joby, and Cole Holcomb. Is Mike Tomlin ever can he, without going like 3 wins, 4 wins, can he survive being a 7 to 10 win coach just off of legacy?
I don't know, man. He's such a damn good coach, and he's almost he's almost Belichick level, where you say, you don't even look at the roster. You just say if he's at the helm, they can get it done. That's a playoff team at least. So they have a decent team. Kenny Pickett, that whole thing. He's going into year 2. There should be some improvement there. They're an exciting team when you look at it. All those years they had Big Ben, they had a really good team, offense and defense, and it was kind of like they were just consistent and everything was pretty stagnant. And now there's this shakeup. They got a young running back who they're not feeding enough because he's a stud. They have, good weapons. One of the better young tight ends in the league, and Freiermuth, man. Pickens, who's making these crazy catches, which everybody's kind of freaking out over that. It's just a Twitter video. But anyway.
There's a lot of that. Guys look
great,
really,
though. Deontay Johnson.
Guess what? Guys look really good in shorts.
They do,
when you take pads off, the most elite athletes in the world are really good.
Yeah, that's true. But not taking anything away from the guy. He's great.
No, of course.
The offense
I think he's a guy he's the next step for that Steeler offense. Yeah. whether it is with Kenny Pickett, it's, in my opinion, still to be seen. Showed some good things.
Right.
Let's push to the AFC East here. We've got some really good football in the AFC East, and I'm going to start it. Actually, I'm going to, instead of going top, bottom, or bottom, top, I'll go top, bottom. Let's talk Buffalo. A pretty quiet offseason. We've seen the DeMar Hamlin clips come out. I think he had a pick in practice. The trolls are definitely after him because
Twitter trolls are everywhere, man.
Let's be real. He wasn't an all-star before everything. People are going to be kind of upset when they realize that, but it is what it is. They also saw Stephon Diggs not show up to OTAs. That's no bueno. I think that's posturing. I don't think he's serious. I mean, what is a better situation for Stephon Diggs right now than being Josh Allen's right-hand man? Is Buffalo, obviously, when you look at Super Bowl odds, they're right up there. Have they done enough? I personally think they're still kind of in that 4 or 5 best team in the league. But what do you think?
Yeah. I mean, look, I love them. You know, they're kind of like that side team you root for. They got Bills Mafia, all that. You like their players, obviously the Damar Hamlin story, all that. But this division is so good. It's so good. And even just, you know, I know we keep bringing up the betting lines, but you look at it, like it's pretty tight, especially, you know, Jets Dolphins. And then, like I was just saying with Mike Tomlin, you can't count out the Patriots ever, as long as Belichick's there. This is just such an interesting division and such a good division that, you know, this is not going to be easy for the Bills at all. So, you know, they're not a powerhouse like they're not at the Chiefs level. I'm going to say that, where I really do think like Chiefs will, you know, not cakewalk, but it's going to be a lot easier for them to win their division than it is for the Bills to win theirs and to, you know, really be that force in the AFC. Not saying they're not going to do it. I think they're going to have a great season, but I'm not super high on them like I was last year and the year before. And that's really just because the division is so good. I mean, look at the Jets offseason. We're going to get there soon. Dolphins, Pats. It's going to be a dogfight. I'm going to be tuned in every week. So September 11th, Bills, Jets at MetLife. I'll be there. I'm so excited. It's going to be a great game.
That's going to be insane. We mentioned the Finns. They probably have the biggest offseason move. I mean, as far as maybe overall player, or maybe it's just player profile, they trade a third rounder for Jalen Ramsey. Showing how much of a joke trades are in the NFL. Fully healthy Tua. This is a team that can win the AFC East, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Top to bottom, the team is great. They're going into year 2 with McDaniel, who the guy's a wizard. I mean, people joke like, "Oh, he's a nerd, he's a hipster." Like, yeah, that's a good thing that he's a nerd. He knows what he's doing for sure. They were really fun to watch last year. It's a shame the whole Tua injury happened, you know, at the start and then kind of lingered throughout the season. You know, got to see like Teddy Bridgewater and these guys get in there. I forget the guy's name who started the playoff game, but it was kind of like, who is this dude? You know,
Skylar Thompson.
Yeah, and he played well. That was a good game.
That was it was way tighter than anybody expected. I'm like 90% sure they covered.
They did. They absolutely did, because I was on the other side of that. So I do remember that. Fucking Skylar Thompson, man. But this is such a cool team. I think they're still in the whole Dalvin Cook sweepstakes. Maybe Jonathan Taylor. I was thinking, you know, where could Jonathan Taylor land? Miami popped up. I don't know. You know,
never thought of Miami for Jonathan Taylor, but
wow. You know, that's a fun team they got down there in South Beach. So
I agree.
I don't know if people refer to them as playing in South Beach. I think that's more of like a Miami Heat thing.
Yeah, I mean
Miami Gardens. That's where Hard Rock is.
Yeah,
down there in Miami Gardens.
Oh yeah, so, you know, you're very affluent. You've been down there lately.
Of course.
Yeah. New England. As much as some things change, New England kind of stays the same as far as the core. Mac Jones back. They do bring in some weapons. Gesicki, James Robinson. The one that made absolutely no sense to me is Juju Smith-Schuster. Maybe the least Patriot player you could maybe put on that team.
Yeah.
Now, similar question to Pittsburgh. How long do you hold on with Bill? In my opinion, you hold on forever because he is the best coach of all time. But it's going to be tough if it gets rough here the next few years.
For sure. Yeah, this is going to all come down to how Mac plays, you know. Zappy Hour, he was looking good last year as his backup. You know, Mac Jones is identical twin pretty much. But, you know, they're always going to have a good team. They're always going to have dogs on that team, you know. The Juju signing was interesting. I think the Gesicki signing was great as long as they use him.
That's right. Oh, all completely. That's a Patriot. You know,
I think they still have Hunter Henry and I think they got rid of Johnny Smith, but they signed those guys.
It sounds about white. It sounds about white.
It sounds about white. I know. Gesicki went from Miami to New England. What the fuck? But you know, he's great. He's a great weapon. They're going to use him, I hope, for his sake. But Stevenson looks like a good back. James Robinson actually went to the Giants, surprisingly. That was a recent move. I saw last week. I was very surprised with
Oh,
that.
wait, did I miss that? Oh, geez.
He signed with the Giants last week. I haven't heard anything since, but 2020
Well, what
fantasy
the hell?
legend, fantasy hero, James Robinson, that
Yes,
is,
correct.
who helped me almost win a ship his rookie season on the Jags. But anyway, Pats, I think it all comes down to Mac Jones, man. Defense is in place. Yeah, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it obviously is. It's such an easy thing to say. It comes down to quarterback when it comes to these teams. But
Right.
if there's a team where it comes down to quarterback, it's the New England Patriots. You can only go as far as Mac Jones takes you. I don't think it's very far. I don't trust Mac Jones a whole lot. I think Mac Jones is the kind of guy that could get like a midseason suspension. He's like an objectively dirty player from things that we've seen on the field. I think there's been like 3 or 4 instances where he's, and it just came out that his trash talk is like way over the top and very personal. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, I'm seeing that too. I mean, he's the Grayson Allen of the NFL, but it doesn't get talked about enough. I see some clips on Twitter, but you would think the Twitter trolls and the media would
he
pay more
hides
attention
being
to
in
it.
New England. Being in New England, it gets hidden a little bit. But yeah, and then the last team in the AFC East, and I'll take the reins on this. It's the New York Jets. It's the New York Jets. For those of you that know me, very large Packer fan. I've got behind me there is my stock, my fake stock of the Packers, as well as my Brett Favre Harley Davidson pick back there. Anyways, yeah, right. They got Aaron Rodgers. That happened. I had to go through like quite a bit of change. Obviously, it happened with Brett Favre. When it happened with Favre, I was in 5th grade. That was more like an emotional, like temper tantrum.
Yeah.
This I kind of saw from a logical standpoint. I knew why he was mad, and honestly, there was a group of us as Packer fans that understood why he was mad, understood that he was going to leave, and just wanted to make it leave the right way. Was this the right way? If you were at the Packer shareholder meeting like I was, they had a very nice things to say about him. It's a little weird, talking about like retiring his number and stuff, but hey, he's a guy that can't hurt me right now. Am I going to root for him? No, because we have their draft pick. I did just read today, super interesting thing about that trade. If the Jets want to go after a receiver or a weapon, call it Davante Adams at the trade deadline. So obviously next year's first round pick is hinging on Rodgers playing 65%. So if they want to trade a first or a second for Adams, the Packers and the Jets will go back to the negotiating table, and the Packers will probably decline because the Jets will probably come and they'll say, hey, we'll make the first rounder no matter what, no matter how much he plays, and here's the 2. Packers, if they're smart, which, hey, I'm giving them maybe a little bit of benefit of the doubt, I'm thinking they should decline that and say, hey, no, we're going to need like a 3rd round kicker if you want to go get Davante Adams and go back on this deal. Right. That's going to be a super interesting thing to me. Rodgers has already been vocal about how he wants to go get somebody, and the reason he took this pay cut, which let's talk about the pay cut. When we traded him, he had $108 million owed to him next season by the New York Jets. Only 1 point something this year. They were never going to pay him that money. That was very hypothetical money. It was never going to happen. To say he took a $35 million pay cut, he didn't do that out of generosity. He did that so the Jets could play football next year. Because the Jets simply couldn't function as a team with $105 million invested into a 40-year-old guy that sometimes wants to play football, depending on the week. And hey, he looks happy. I'm happy for him. I need him to play 65% for my sanity. I really would like if he played 65% and they sucked. I don't probably see that because the Jets do have a pretty good roster as far as, defensive talent. I think, wouldn't they have won like 11 or 12 games? They scored like 19 points or some dumb thing like that last year.
They looked good last year. They really did.
Their defense is really solid. It seems like Rodgers has, But that's the other thing is, it's not obviously Garrett Wilson's great. Outside of Garrett Wilson, Allen Lazard is okay. I mean, I've had Allen Lazard as my number one receiver. It didn't work out. He wasn't what you would call productive as a 1. He wasn't productive as a 2. He's a number 3 receiver. He's number 2 right now in New York. Whether it stays that way, they did get McCole Hardman too. So my 2 cents on the Rodgers thing. It sucks. I had to get over it fast. I bought my Jordan Love jersey. I'm ready to go. We'll talk Packers here in a little bit, but any thoughts in your opinion? How many wins are the Jets getting this year?
Oh, so I did this already. I went through their schedule. I went through the Giants schedule. I gave the Jets 11-6. I have to go back to the paper. I think it was 11-6. I went by each game. I was just like, win, loss, win. It's a playoff team, man. They're going to break. they're going to do it this year. I think they can win the division outright, of course. But this is the most exciting team they've had in
our lifetime.
So, I mean,
definitely our lifetime.
Being in the area and knowing so many diehards, it's a really exciting time. I'm going to a Jet game before I'm going to a Giant game this season. That's crazy. So I'm really excited myself. I mean, they're going to be on TV a bunch for the whole country, but Aaron Rodgers in town. It happened. Garrett Wilson's going to be pushing 1,500 yards. They got the number 1 corner in the league. Don't forget about Randall Cobb. I want to remind you that too. So if you have a little bit more venting to do.
No, I got no quarrel. You can have. He's talking about used parts.
I don't know
have
how.
The 34-year-old Randall Cobb that. I can't wait till he's sitting in New York. You guys are gonna see it. He looks like he is crying anytime it gets below 40 degrees. His eyes water like crazy, and it's sad. He's a very adorable little man because he is a little man and he's not very good at football anymore, but he is getting to play with his good buddies and rah, whatever. I'm going to blast through the NFC South quick, just because we talked about there's one team I will pause on. I think we have actually a decent conversation to have on New Orleans, but let me just run through some things. Panthers, obviously, number 1 pick. Great. Who are you going to put around him? You go get Hayden Hurst, you go get Miles Sanders, you go get Adam Thielen, and you get DJ Chark. Honestly, the team won 7 games last year with an objectively worse roster. This team feels like a good team. Are they going to be 8-9 wins? Could be. Obviously, it hinges a lot on the quarterback. Is he the guy? You don't know. Obviously short guy. It's going to be interesting. It's the first time we're doing Kyler was obviously the last one. Little bit of hot early. But I do feel like he's in a better situation than Kyler was in Arizona. It feels like the Panthers are more of a serious organization now with Frank Reich at the helm. Looking at Atlanta's another interesting one. They went and spent some money on offensive linemen. You mentioned it earlier. They go make Jesse Bates a top 5 highest paid safety. Bates was all pro in 2020, and he was a huge part of that Cincinnati defense. The one thing that'll be interesting in a quarterback battle, I haven't heard a whole lot about. We talked about some quarterback battles we haven't heard about. Desmond Ridder and Taylor Heinicke. It may not be one that they're obviously officially stating, but you can't tell me that Taylor Heinicke is not walking into that building every day, looking at Desmond Ridder and saying, I'm coming for that ass. That's just how he is. And is it Atlanta? You kind of mentioned it earlier. That's an exciting team to you. It's an exciting team to me, at least to see where they're going. And maybe it does go to shit. Who knows? But in my opinion, Atlanta is kind of that more fun team. Now let's talk south of Atlanta, and I'm not going to touch on them for a long time, is the Bucks. They get the 1-year deal to Baker Mayfield. I don't know. That's about all I feel about them. I don't think the Bucks are going to be very good. I think the Bucks win 5 games at most. I think their team total, if I remember, is 6.5, 7.5, under that thing. Not a team that I'm super excited. But let's talk about the team that you and I are both excited about, or at least interested about in the NFC South. Talk me through New Orleans. Talk me through what you think of the Saints team. Obviously, Derek Carr gets the big deal. Is this a team that not only competes to win the South, but competes to do anything beyond that?
Yeah, I definitely think this was a good move for Carr's career. He put together so many good years there, but just again, something with that Raiders organization. You, myself, and many others just we just don't look at them, with high regard. So I think him getting out of there, fresh
You put
start.
that very nicely.
Yeah, exactly. I don't want any trolls on my ass and on Twitter. So, but I look at their young guys. I'm really high on Olave. I think Olave is going to, he's chasing Garrett Wilson for whatever kind of numbers Garrett Wilson's putting up. Olave is going to take that leap this year. I think, they got your boy Jamal Williams at running back because it looks like Kamara is going to get suspended, which hasn't also really been talked about that much. But Jamal Williams, I mean, he was a touchdown machine last year. He's going to be a good back for them. Michael Thomas, who knows what's going on? So that, also comes into play. It's like,
I heard he's healthy. I don't know if he's,
that mean?
I don't know if he's looking to play football, but I know he's at least healthy. Right. That was, I believe, the ESPN headline that I read today. He's a guy that, as much as I'd love to rely on him and I'd love to take him in fantasy, I had him back when he had, I think, a 1,200-yard year. And was just Mr. Reliable with PPR, was just insane because he would just dink and dunk his way down the field with an old Drew Brees. But interesting to see if he fits into that team, especially with Olave.
Yeah, definitely. I think, again, I'm really high on Olave. I think he had quietly a really good rookie season with a few different quarterbacks. So I think that, getting a veteran like Carr, who's a good quarterback, he is, and he's not stellar, but I think that connection is definitely something, worth monitoring, especially from a betting perspective. If you're looking at, receiving yard totals, something like that, because I think he will score more this year too. So keep an eye on the touchdowns. I'm definitely getting sidetracked with the whole Olave thing because I'm keeping him in fantasy. So that's why I want to talk about him. But them as
that's
a team,
okay. It's a good keep. I think he's I think he's really, really good. I had him on fantasy last year, and he was fucking awesome.
Yeah, I'm hoping he plays even better this year, and no sophomore slump, and I'm happy. But I think that they're not really getting talked about enough as a team because they don't have the young guys like they don't Atlanta and Carolina do. Obviously, Carolina had the first pick; they took Bryce. Atlanta, they got Bijan, Kyle Pitts, Drake London, all these young guys, Ritter too. So they're kind of getting more, of the attention from the media, but definitely don't sleep on the Saints here, man.
Yeah, it's a team that has a lot of first-round draft picks in Atlanta. It's a team that it feels like we're going to say it again, if the quarterback works, it can. Yeah. It's a good group around him. So
you could say that about just about any team. I know we've said that a few times this pod, but it is true. And I don't even know who's backing up. Going back to New Orleans here, bouncing around the Southeast a little bit, but going back to New Orleans, I don't know who's even backing up Derek Carr. But as long as Derek Carr is healthy, I think he's going to have a good season. It's not like. I think this is one of those. I'm optimistic that this is one of those situations where the change is going to be for the better. It's not like, oh, he sucks. He's back to, his poor play that occurred here and there when he was on the Raiders. I think this is going to be a good fit for him for sure. So
yeah, and actually the backup Jake Haener from Fresno State took him in the fourth round. Definitely a guy to keep an eye on if it doesn't work out. Obviously, though. Huge bag you can't ignore for Derek Carr. NFC North, my neck of the woods. I'll run through the NFC North quick. The Bears, biggest move, obviously, DJ Moore. You get the DJ Moore trade for the number 1 overall pick. Got a decent pair of linebackers in Tremaine Edwards and TJ Edwards as well. Now, we are getting the same thing that we saw during the Mitch Trubisky era.
Yeah, I know where you're going with this.
Justin Fields is getting a ton of run to be the MVP of the league. Now, do not get me wrong. And Bears fans, they will get me wrong. He's great. Like really, really, really good. I don't know if he's a really, really good football player or if he's a really, really, really good quarterback yet. Right now, really, really, really good football player. He's the guy that, if all these NFL players went out there and they were doing just, bullshitting drills, playing school, he's the guy you want on your team. He improvises. He's smart. He's tough as nails. There's no doubt about his toughness. The guy takes some of the worst hits in the league. And that's one thing that probably is a detriment to him is he does not slide well. And it hurt him in college, breaking his ribs in the playoffs. So the Bears are a team that feels like we may need to pump the brakes on some of the hype behind it. Because, if I'm not mistaken, Joey, now you could correct me if I'm wrong. They had the number one pick, and who gets the worst team, right? Gets the number one pick, worst team in the league. It's not the team that's coming up. It's the team with the worst record.
Right.
And all the majority of those players are back, minus and plus a few other guys. Obviously, DJ Moore is huge. In my opinion, the Bears are getting way more hype than they should. Does it feel that way from an outsider that's not in this division?
Yeah, I like them, on paper and the moves and everything. Like, I really want to root for them because even, when
that's not
made,
cool for me.
Hey, even when they made the playoffs the past, when they had Mitch Trubisky and even before that, like the Jay Cutler years, the quarterback was always kind of, it wasn't structured or, it wasn't
held him back.
Stable.
It's literally held him back.
So, in comes, a super exciting guy. I'm high on Fields. I mean, as a thrower and as a rusher.
How can you not be?
He's great.
He has not shown us anything. He hasn't really shown us anything that he can't do the job. It's just, and sorry, I'm opening a bottle of bourbon.
Oh man, I've had it.
But he obviously can do the job, and that's not the question. The question is, can he do the job in Chicago? Chicago is, and there's a lot of organizations in sports. It doesn't matter how good of a player you are. And for the longest time, it was the Cleveland Cavaliers had that stamp with LeBron James. You can have the best player in the game. You might just not make it because of your team. You have to go out. You have to make the moves. And yes, the Bears are making some moves and they're getting exciting. But at the same time, it's very hard to jump on board that fast, especially as somebody who just, overall doesn't care for the Bears. And I'll be the first one to call a spade a spade in the NFC, especially the NFC North.
To you, man.
But it's a team that's just a little ahead. And a team that was probably a little ahead last year, and in my opinion, is going to make that step, is Detroit. I like to believe in Detroit.
I agree. I think the Bears are 1 year away. Again, I want to root for them. I think they have a cool, fun team, and I think what's going on in Chicago is really it's exciting, and they haven't had this much excitement in I think a while. Again, I'm an outsider, but I think Detroit is even more exciting. I think the Bears are 1 more year away, and they're getting a little too overhyped. I think the Lions, they're ready to go. I mean, they were so close to being a playoff team last year. Tough division overall. I mean, but Minnesota, this is I thought Minnesota was the favorite. They're not. Actually, Detroit is. So I think, Detroit's finally getting the respect they deserve, and I think they're going to come through.
I think it's a public perception line with Detroit. We watched Quarterback on Netflix. Kirk Cousins, again, good player, good quarterback. Can he get it done at that highest level? I don't know. One thing that does scare the ever living hell out of me is they drafted Jordan Addison. I thought Jordan Addison out of USC, didn't think he had a great year at USC last year. I thought if he would have stayed in the Big Ten, I mean, obviously we watched him at Michigan State. If he would have stayed in the Big Ten, he would have been, the Big Ten had good enough receivers last year where he would have been up there with the big names. I don't think it would have hurt him as much as he made it seem, but obviously you chase the bag now in college, and the bag was obviously with USC. But yeah, and the team we haven't mentioned yet is my Green Bay Packers. My Green Bay Packers, I believe, are they third to win the division? I think they're like plus 300.
They are okay. So the book I'm looking at, they are tied with Chicago. They're both plus 360. I thought Minnesota was the favorite. Minnesota is plus 250, and Detroit is plus 115. So we're gonna have to, when we talk more betting strategies in the coming weeks, and what we're eyeing, that Minnesota line is really
going to be interesting. Yeah, especially with Minnesota, a team that's
the respect. Yeah,
a team that's done it. I mean, I don't have it in front of me, but Minnesota's been the thorn in our heel as the Packers have sat atop this mountaintop for 2.5 decades. Minnesota's always been the team that's kind of like poking the bear a little bit. But yeah, definitely. As far as the Packers, it was not a super exciting offseason. Whenever was going to be, didn't have the money to make it happen. Obviously, being held captive by a little bit of Aaron Rodgers money. We did, however, my favorite but my favorite thing we did was retain Keyshawn Nixon, our returner. He was an all-pro, something the Packers have literally never had. We've had everything in my lifetime. Charles Woodson, we've had Hall of Fame corners. We had, obviously Reggie White on the defensive line. Linebackers, we've had guys like Clay Matthews. On offense, obviously, we've had every position. The only position we never had was a really dope returner. And now we finally have one that can completely change a game, especially when the team's not great. And we're the most, by the way, Packers are the youngest team in the NFL, for those that didn't know. And
I did not know that.
Yeah, a young team like that, kick return, I mean, just emotions are going to be, it's going to be more of and I think Packer fans, we got to be in on this. We're going to have an emotional roller coaster. These guys, a lot of them are my age, your age, 25, 26, 27, and they are young yet. They don't know what they don't know. I'm not sure if the Packers are going to make the playoffs. I would love to see them. Obviously, I'm going to be rooting my ass off going to almost every game. But for me right now, if there's a bet in the NFC North value-wise, it's probably Minnesota. I hate to say that. But I'll be on the record for that.
Right. We're going to talk about this some more at a later date and see if any of the lines move. Because, again, it is only August 3rd. But I did not know that Detroit was getting this much respect. I mean, plus 115. I thought it was Minnesota.
Public perception, man. The public love the Lions. It's a team especially it's a Hard Knocks team.
It's the darling, the Hard Knocks darling.
Flop.
Right.
They didn't have to be great. They didn't have to make the playoffs, but they were just good enough to where, hey, they were alive until the 11th hour, till the last 3:00 game on the last Sunday of the year. The Lions were alive.
And they could take down anyone. I saw them pretty much manhandle the Giants, who had a good season. They came into MetLife on a cold-ass November day. I think it was November, maybe December. I don't know. But they just kind of kicked the shit out of the Giants. I mean, they're well-rounded, too. And
I'll tell you one matchup that I think the NFL did kind of good on, and maybe it's why they're getting a lot of hype. Week 1, Kansas City, Detroit, baby. That's going to be just I feel like I've never seen those teams play.
Yeah.
I feel like I can't point to a Kansas City and Detroit matchup ever. I can't think of it.
It's cool. I mean, normally they do get reigning Super Bowl champ, or sometimes it's a Super Bowl rematch. So, they bring in the Chiefs, and who did they pick? The Lions. That's cool. It is, it's not the Bills or the Bengals or a team that, went toe to toe with the Chiefs late last year. The Lions, man. So you're right. They're the country wants to, they want more Detroit Lions, man. About time.
Hey, I grew up in the UP in Michigan. A lot of Lions fans around me. It's probably the one team in the NFC North that them doing good hurts me the least, I guess. Does that make sense? But
it's the Commanders for me. Yeah.
right. Yeah, exactly. Well, good segue because I'm gonna let you take the reins. I'm gonna mute myself, drink some bourbon, let you talk NFC
Do
East.
it. Enjoy the bourbon and the Yeti. Where to start with the NFC East? I mean, Philly lost some guys. They lost some coaches, some coordinators, but they also got some guys. The whole Georgia thing with the draft. They're a powerhouse. I am not looking too much into who they lost. I think they're going to be one of the better teams, if not the best team in the league. And they could reach the Super Bowl again. They can win the whole thing. I'm not going to look too much into it. Dallas is always a little intriguing. I think they have a good team. I always kind of like closet rooted for Dak. As weird as that is, like I just
hold the fucking door. Yeah, I had to get off pause.
Not in that sense. Like, all right, if missed the playoffs, which was very common, and the Cowboys were in it, like I'd like to see them win a game or two.
Oh yes, that's that.
We're gonna have to edit. You're gonna have to edit this part out. All right. So anyway,
you're gonna have to.
Dak.
Yeah, I'm gonna go back to my bourbon. You just keep talking about how much you love Dak Prescott.
No, I'm kind of a believer in him, but it's the same shit with them every year. I'm not going to get into it. We're definitely going to edit that Dak part out, but it's the same shit with them. I don't know what to say. It's like they're never that good. Sometimes they're that bad. There's just always the media, there's always media darlings, but I don't know. My focus is the Giants. Looking at the Giants, they're plus 630. That is really scary. I like what they did this offseason. I like the Waller trade. I like, pickups like Paris Campbell and then some of these other guys. I absolutely love the Jalen Hyatt draft pick. If you're seeing on Twitter, the guy runs faster than Tyreek Hill.
Huge fan.
I mean, he was being mocked there in round one. And
I was gonna say he was a guy that I thought was round one talent. He's skinny. That's the only thing that they got against him. And you know who else was skinny? Devonta Smith was skinny,
right?
And he turned out okay.
It's like he's gonna be just fine. I'm sure. I hope. And then as a fan, I don't need him to be the best receiver in the league, or maybe even a top 5 guy. Just be a force. Just be a weapon. I think Waller will have a good season. Hopefully, stays healthy. All that. I am a little concerned. I'm not, gonna be like, oh yeah, this is our year, this and that. It's last year they weren't blowing teams out. It kind of reminded me of the 2016 season where the previous year they made the playoffs where, they had a good roster, of course. But they weren't kicking the shit out of many teams. I mean, they were going down the wire. It was, Sundays last year, my heart was racing. It was fun. It was definitely fun. But they need to improve in a lot of places for sure. I love Dable. I think year 2 of Dable, that's really where, I want to focus this year because I think the management is finally where it needs to be for this organization. Because for years with Gettleman and McAdoo and Joe Judge and all these guys, it was like kind of just a coaching carousel, that whole thing. I love Joe Schoen and Brian Dable so much. It's making Sundays and Mondays and some Thursdays so much more fun again. So I don't think they're going to take this division. I'm just hoping for a wild card again, man. But who knows? Maybe I'll be pleasantly surprised. This is the Eagles' division to lose, though. And I have nothing to say about the Commanders, but if you want to say anything about them, go ahead.
I do have the only thing I really have to say, and honestly, before we hop to the Commanders, because honestly, I'll use that to kind of transition into the league news because that's where I kind of want to start. Shout out to your Giants last year.
Yeah, man.
An absolutely unprecedented 14-5 against the spread.
Oh, it was great.
Unbelievable.
Last year, I did this whole, I'm not going to bet on my team. I'm going to just watch as a fan. I did that.
Perfect year to do that.
It was a perfect year to do that. I would throw in like a $10 first touchdown score or some bullshit if I got an odds boost or something. But
Sure.
I wasn't, I wasn't investing any serious money in them, just emotions. So, because it really sucks when you have money and emotions on your team and both lose. That can ruin your Sunday.
It makes Sundays very dark sometimes.
It does. That bullet comes in handy, man.
But we were talking Washington, and we're going to move from our divisional look just to some major news in the NFL that we caught. And we're going to try to speed it up a little bit and get this thing done in the next 20, 30 minutes. Washington, Dan Snyder's out. We're going to get a slew of Magic Johnson content. I am super, super excited for. Josh Harris, who is the owner of the Sixers. So if this if it flops, or even if they go well and it somehow hurts the Sixers, as a Bucks fan, I love that. Obviously, you said as a Giants fan, it's always been a team that's kind of impartial to you. And probably because Dan Snyder is probably the reason you can thank. So yeah, I mean, that's really all I got for the Washington for now Commanders. Is there a team name that you would like to see? I like the Hogs.
Washington Hogs. I don't know. I haven't even really seen the new.
Or I think it's Red. I think it's Red Hogs. Maybe is what it was.
Yeah. I don't know, man. I don't give a shit about that franchise. I really don't.
That's a perfect answer. I'll move along, because our next story is one that we touched on before that we were going to talk about again.
Yeah.
Broncos defensive lineman, ex Iowa State Cyclone, D lineman, and I'm going to fuck his name up, Ioma Awazarike. I know I got the last name right.
That works.
My boy is facing up to 2 years in prison for betting on games, not just last season. They've had the drop on my guy for years. He was betting Iowa State games. Iowa State, we're going to talk about Iowa State a little bit later in our college football preview, or college football offseason recap. He was named in that one too. This guy is going to get some major fucking sanctions on him, or not sanctions, but indictments, which is the big keyword right now in the world. Holy crap. 2 years in prison for gambling. We'll talk about this one. Is that seem, and maybe there's more nefarious things that we don't know. Apparently from, and it was one of those things that it's a source on Twitter. I don't know how much I want to look into it, but Scoob is actually a pretty good source for things. He apparently changed like 2 letters in his first name and 2 letters in his last name, but kept his email with his full name as his email, which if that comes to light and that ends you up in prison, I mean, all-time Jimbo.
Right.
What do you think about Wazarike, man? This is crazy. This is it's obviously the number one, obviously as bad as Calvin really was, he wasn't going to, there was never an idea that he might go to prison.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's all crazy to me. I don't know, in terms of, is it fair? Is it unfair? I have no say there, but I just think this guy, there's going to be more to come. Today I was looking on Twitter. I mean, there was the Iowa basketball player. There was another college football player. He was a kicker. Was he might have been Iowa State. Yeah. I'm not going to go on Twitter right now.
These Iowa boys need to relax. Come on.
Something in Iowa.
Another kicker.
There, man.
A kicker?
Yeah. Something.
Talk about living the dream. Know.
Yeah. I think the Mississippi might flow through the state of Iowa. So maybe it's something in the water.
It does.
Mississippi.
I was born in Iowa. It definitely does.
There you go, man. And look at you. You're hosting a gambling podcast.
Riverboat Boys.
Shit. Dude, it's
we'll touch more. Yeah. There's going to be so much more. And like you said, how many more guys are going to get busted? We're going to talk plenty more about gambling, how it's affecting the leagues. Let's keep it moving. One of the most polarizing topics. They're not paying running backs, Paul. It's not good. Jonathan Taylor and the Colts, rather not the Colts, more Jim Irsay. They're at an impasse. To say the least. Taylor, he met with Irsay in his trailer, I guess, at training camp. Ended up demanding a trade. And Jonathan Taylor, being an ex-Badger, watched him a lot. Incredibly nice human. Bought up a bunch of local pizza shops in Madison after he got his contract, and has like done a shitload for the community. Nothing about him seems like he's a greedy guy. He just wants to get paid what he wants to get paid.
Right.
So he meets with Irsay, ends up demanding a trade, then triggers probably a drunk or high tweet where Irsay says, NFL running back situation. We have negotiated a CBA that took years of effort and hard work to compromise in good faith by both sides. To say now that a specific player category, which is hilarious that he calls it not a position, player category, which is the most owner. That's the most owner jargon you could ever think of. It's not a position, it's a category. Wants another negotiation after the fact is inappropriate. Some agents are just selling bad faith, which he then doubles down and says, well, that's not about Jonathan Taylor, which, come on, man. I mean, this is ridiculous. And then on top of it, there's a leak that goes out that says, well, Jonathan Taylor's got a pre-existing back injury, and now they're going to put him on the injury list where he doesn't get paid this year, and then Jonathan Taylor quickly knocks it down, said, check your sources, blah, 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 which good on him for actually going out and saying that.
Yeah, of course.
But what the hell is your thought on, and you said something that I didn't even thought of, Jonathan Taylor on Miami. There are a lot of teams that could use Jonathan Taylor more than the Indianapolis Colts right now. And I think there was also a tweet, and maybe it was a fake tweet that I got on, where Irsay is talking about the league goes on without Jonathan Taylor and without me. He's just as much as people are taking it in a literal sense, he's just being philosophical with it because he has done a lot of drugs. I've been around people that are like that. That's just kind of how they talk, whether you take it offensively. If you're a billionaire and you own a football team, you have the right to talk like that. But at the same time, it's Jonathan Taylor, dude. I mean, it's Jonathan Taylor.
Yeah. I mean, what is he, like 23? It's crazy.
Young.
What's going on
so young.
there.
Hasn't even gotten to the second contract.
Yeah. They're creating this whole movement. They're having like Zoom calls and stuff. You feel for them because it was always a very valuable position, and it still is. And I think it will always be. It's just been devalued, and that's the issue.
I mean, growing up, what jerseys did we have? We had running back jerseys.
My first jersey ever, and it was a Willis McGahee Buffalo Bills jersey.
Damn.
Very random. Very
cool.
I remember the store. It was at a shopping mall. I think I had a gift card to it. I was like, I'm going to get a Willis McGahee jersey. But he was a running back, playing Madden and all that stuff. The running back position has always been.
I had Amon Green, man.
Huge.
Amon Green.
Brett Favre, yeah.
I shouldn't say that. Brett Favre, I think, was my first technically, but the first one I remember buying, I got Edgerrin James on the Colts.
There you go.
Which
running back.
That was something I ran through the wash maybe 5 times, and it was completely ruined. It was the old Reebok ones where they lasted a good summer of wearing it outside, out and about,
like all scraped off. Yeah.
It's terrible. But no, running backs have come to a spot now where, and that is where we are as a league, and that's fine. But there are, I mean, guys like Jonathan Taylor. Why are we having this conversation with guys like Jonathan Taylor? I mean,
he's one of the more,
and don't get me wrong. I know, obviously, with you being a Giants fan with Saquon, I think we can both look at it just from Saquon's on his going to his third deal. Jonathan Taylor is still on a rookie deal. There's a pretty decent age gap there. And Taylor has been all pro, and he's been mostly healthy. Saquon had injuries. There were injuries there. But just not paying the running backs in general is really, really hard. And it's something that I don't think is going to change, and I don't think it's going to get better. So it's one of those things that it's a new normal. It sucks. Those guys are going to have short shelf lives, and whether it's, hey, we need we need more percentage guaranteed. Otherwise, none of us are going to sign. I mean, that's the only thing that happens. The only thing that makes something change is if they're all like, well, none of us are going to sign.
Yeah.
But the problem is they're kind of expendable, as we found out. Super Bowl winning running backs haven't ever really
crazy
been.
Stat.
It's a ridiculous stat. I think we both know what it is. I'm sure plenty of people do. I don't know it exactly off the top of my head.
Yeah.
But it just doesn't matter as much. But
right.
Let's keep moving on. We have 5 new head coaches in the league. We talked about Sean Payton. I wrote on here Frank Reich, the French Reich. We're talking World War II, folks. It's like what happened if the Nazis took France. DeMeco Ryans, one of my favorite actually ones that we forgot to touch on when we were talking about Houston. Indy gets Shane Steichen, and then Arizona, they go with Jonathan Gannon. So I think we both have the same opinion on what of those coaches are going to make or has the best chance to make the playoffs. Let's take Sean Payton out of it. Frank Reich, DeMeco Ryans, Jonathan Gannon, and Steichen. Out of those 4, who's the one you think gets to the playoffs first?
I want to say Frank Reich. He's got the experience, and I think he's got a good team down there, albeit pretty young, but I want to say him. I don't know anything about the Eagles coordinators, the guy who went to Arizona and the guy who went to Indy. I think the DeMeco Ryans hire is awesome. To get to the playoffs first, it's going to be, I think, Ryans or Frank Reich. Who was a better chance? Might be Ryans. I said Reich originally, but I think it might be Ryans. I think Ryans is going to. I mean, they seem. I
like your confidence in Houston. Yeah, I really do.
I really
hope I hope it sticks with the season when we get into gambling, because I feel like you're going to have some very favorable lines that you're going to have to look dead in the face and tell me that you're not going to take +9, 7, 6.
Oh, it's definitely going to happen, and it happened last year, and they were awful. So.
Hey, that's okay. Yeah. I watched way too many Texans games because Davis Mills was part of the Garbage Time Quarterbacks Club. For those of you that listened to Ball Sacks and Hardwood last year, he was part of that. And for that, we thank him. Talk about newcomers, foursome of young quarterbacks. And you may have already tipped your hand on that. Young, Stroud, Richardson, and Levis that were taken in the first 2 rounds. Who's obviously we know who you think probably has your shine early look. Let's talk later. Hendon Hooker in Detroit, Jake Haener in New Orleans, Stetson Bennett in Los Angeles. Those are your 3-4 round guys. Yeah. And there's always seems to be one every year. There's one guy in that 3rd, 4th round that gets a chance. To me, it's Hendon Hooker. I think Hendon Hooker, it's similar to Cedric Tillman. The reason you like Cedric Tillman is because Hendon Hooker and him were incredible last year at Tennessee when Hooker was healthy. Coming off an ACL, it's hard to jump on that train right away. And obviously Detroit's going to slow play it because they're paying Goff a lot of money. But do you see, I mean, I think we both feel the same in New Orleans that Carr's got the job. Can we see Stetson Bennett do something in Los Angeles? That'd be funny. You kind of look like Stetson Bennett.
Wow, I've never had that, but I mean, we're about the same age. I'm 29. I just turned 29 pretty recently, so he's I think like a year younger than me.
And it's crazy. And you graduated college, right?
Yeah, oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I don't think he did. I think he went for like 7 or 8 years.
Yeah, who knows, man? But I don't know. I mean, he could end up, Stafford could get hurt or something, and then they're like, let's throw in this guy. He won a couple chips.
Stafford to me looked like he had a dead arm last year. He did nothing that showed me he's like ready to fully embark on an NFL season. And your only backup right now, it's Stetson Bennett, a guy that's done national championship games, playoff games. He's been there before. I don't think he's going to get spooked, whether he has the actual talent. That's kind of secondary, but let's move along here. I'm going to try to get through these next couple of things pretty quickly. This one, especially just some who's who of free agents that are going somewhere. I'm just going to run through these names when we get to the end. If there's anybody you want to talk about, I think the one that we're going to more talk about is this free agents who's still out there. So little who's who of who is around. Maybe I'll throw some music behind this. Calais Campbell signs with Atlanta along with a Jeff Okudah trade. Buffalo gets New Orleans wide receiver and return specialist Deontay Hardy. Andy Dalton, the Red Rocket, 2-year, $10 million deal with the Panthers to back up and mentor a young QB there. PJ Walker is a Bear, I think. I don't know if he passed his physical, but I'm pretty sure he did. Also with Bob Tonyan and Donta Foreman. Broncos, they go get Samaje Perine. You mentioned that earlier. And backup quarterback Jarrett Stidham. Now, looking at that, I don't know why I put it on the list. The Lions, they go get ex-Steeler Cam Sutton, as well as David Montgomery. That was an interesting under the radar, kind of going to fill in that Jamal Williams role maybe out there. Case Keenum gets a 2-year deal with Houston. That's hilarious. He's still playing. Colts signed Gardner Minshew. If things don't work out with Richardson, maybe Minshew gets a shot. Jacksonville, they brought in CJ Beathard, one of the best bag-getting backup quarterbacks we've seen the last few years. He's going to back up Trevor Lawrence. The Raiders bringing a slew of names. Austin Hooper, Brian Hoyer, Philip Dorsett, Keelan Cole, OJ Howard, and Marcus Epps. You hear a lot of Patriots in there. Josh McDaniels definitely has his influence. Mike White.
I definitely also hear, not to cut you off, I definitely also hear 3 and 14 there.
Oh, I definitely hear 3 and 14. A lot of mid. Smells like a lot of mid. Moving down to Miami, they get Mike White in Miami. 2-year, 16 mil. 2-year, 16 mil sounds like a guy that's going to play some snaps. I don't know how confident they are in Tua if he gets one more. And they also they signed receiver Braxton Berrios from your neck of the woods. So
another legend.
They go get him. Former Browns first rounder Jabril Peppers signs a 2-year deal with the Patriots. McCole Hardman finds a home in New York as a Jet. I mentioned that earlier. Devin Bush, linebacker, gets a 1-year deal in Seattle. Tampa signs Greg Gaines, big white boy from the Rams, as well as Chase Edmonds. And then ex-Chiefs right tackle Andrew Wiley and my boy Jacoby Brissett. If he ever gets in, take his yards over. They're headed to Washington. I don't think he's going to get a whole lot of opportunity out there, but we'll see. Now, let's talk who's still out there, Joey, because we do have a few guys that are still out there. Dalvin Cook is the number one. We mentioned a few teams with it. I put in here notes a few weeks ago when I started this. He may not get signed. Just kidding. Everybody wants him. So who do we think, who is the most dangerous with Dalvin Cook? Let's talk. Let's phrase it that way.
I'm thinking the Jets or the Dolphins. I know he's been linked to the Pats, which I feel like it's always going to be, they're going to poke their heads in there, but I'll give you one answer because I'm giving you a lot of ors. I'm like, it's either this team or this team. It's going to be the Jets because Breece Hall is going to come back. They got a couple other backs who are just going to, if they get Dalvin, man, shit. I'm going to say it's over if they get Dalvin.
It would hurt. It would hurt my feelings. That's for sure. Because the worst thing is if Dalvin Cook goes out there and does decent, and they're going to be like, oh, wow, that's the best running back Aaron's ever played with. And Aaron Jones, who I love and I think is a very nice human, is going to be sitting at home like, well, man, I'm pretty good. But hey, we'll see. I do think, and I mentioned it to you earlier, and I mentioned that I was going to mention it on the podcast. It's not a closed thing yet that he didn't beat the shit out of his girlfriend. Something to keep an eye on. Obviously, the NFL kind of walks a little bit of a tightrope when it comes to that sort of thing. So definitely, probably, can we agree the most interesting free agent that's still on the board?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, he's probably the best too.
100%.
Zeke isn't being talked about enough.
I agree.
Dalvin still got it. And I mean, a team like Miami, a team like the Jets, they don't really need him, but he could help them, really contend.
Oh, absolutely.
So yeah, going to be exciting to see where he lands.
100%. A few other names, some really big names: Julio Jones, Zeke Elliott, Melvin Ingram. So Julio, obviously getting a little bit older. Zeke, not really older. I don't know if he's left New England yet from his visit there, where I don't know if you saw the picture of him and Max sitting on the same side of the table.
I did.
I'm hoping somebody was in the bathroom during that picture.
Right.
Otherwise, a very awkward looking dinner.
Yeah.
In Melvin Ingram, he had a bounce back season with 6 sacks in Miami. Out of those three, Julio, Zeke, Melvin Ingram, who's a guy that, comes in and maybe changes a team? I at this point, it's hard to say there's a guy that hasn't been signed that could come in and change a team. Those are 3 guys that have come in and they're game changers.
Yeah. But Ingram, coming off a good season, like you said, in his 30s, but still got it as an edge rusher. So, Zeke might be on his last legs. He's past his prime. And Julio definitely is. So sadly, but that's just how it goes. But Ingram could definitely help out a team, contender or not. So yeah, that's my answer.
Yeah, absolutely. A few other names, a guy that you're kind of familiar. Well, no, you're completely familiar with, been in your division his whole career, may not be for long, has been actually linked to my team as a possible backup option. I don't know how that would go. Carson Wentz. Who the hell wants a Carson Wentz right now?
I don't think anyone does. I haven't heard that either, so I don't know where you're getting those.
It's Packer Twitter. It's
okay.
It's what if everything we mortgaged on our future doesn't work? Do we roll the dice on Carson Wentz? And yeah, if Jordan Love doesn't work, I would roll the dice on Carson Wentz because we fucked up. Man. We fucked up bad. But I don't want to spend too much time on Carson Wentz. I think we both are in agreement. There's not a whole lot meat on that bone. Jarvis Landry getting older, started only 3 games, had less than 300 yards in New Orleans. I think similar to Julio, receivers hit that point and it's hard. And another guy that I can add to that list, T.Y. Hilton, played 3 games in Dallas. Wow. We thought he might actually come in and do something. And he's another guy that he's just not quite probably at the age where you take a chance on him. Taylor Lewan and Will Compton, obviously 2 very young, strapping opportunity guys there. No, I don't think either of them look to be in football shape if you've been watching their content. Kenyon Drake's an interesting one. He had just under 500 yards and 4 touchdowns in Baltimore last year. Feels like there's a position for him somewhere. Another guy, Miles Jack. Remember Miles Jack?
Yeah.
A linebacker, no home right now. Along with him, 4-time Pro Bowler, but from 15 to 18. So it's been a little while. Another aging guy, Anthony Barr from Minnesota, decent edge rusher. Akeem Hicks hasn't really been back to his 16 to 18 form. And the last one that I can't think of a world that he's not signed to a team to be somebody's backup. Arguably one of the best backups in your and my lifetime. Teddy Two Sleeves, Teddy Bridgewater. He's
2 gloves, man.
Yeah, 2 sleeves, 2 gloves.
He's got a position in the league.
There's somewhere somebody needs Teddy Bridgewater. Definitely a player that'll still be on somebody's radar at some point. Let's move to retirement. Few things on retirement. There actually, surprisingly, wasn't a lot of guys that retired. I think NFL players are looking at it like from a business standpoint, they're probably having their accountant saying, hey, man, you can go make like $5 million a year with the inflated values of this. And your 401k doesn't do phenomenal. Maybe you should play some football. So first one, Tom Brady. I don't think we need to talk about him too much. Obvious Hall of Famer. Antonio Brown, obvious CTE, a guy that I thought was going to play indoor football there for a second. He bought an indoor football team and then announced he was going to play for said indoor football team. I don't think anything ever happened. He stopped paying the coaches, which that's a bold move. But next one, an interesting one that's probably worth a conversation, AJ Green. So looking at AJ Green's numbers, 12 seasons, 7 straight Pro Bowls to start his career. 6 of those 7 years were north of 1,000 yards. Finished, but this is what gets me. finished 44th all time in yards, 51st in receptions, and 49th in touchdowns. I think it's just not probably quite enough. If you maybe got AJ Green a championship at some point, you could probably make the argument, but it's probably not a Hall of Fame career. Good career, great career.
Yeah.
All-timer for the Bengals, and that's great, but probably a little lackluster at the end.
Right. Oh shit, dropped my AirPods. Yeah, definitely lackluster. I don't think he did much on Arizona. And I remember that one game, I think it was against the Packers, where he kind of fucked it up for them at the end there.
Yep. That was awesome. I loved it. That was one of the best games ever.
It's that age, man. It's that 33, 34. It's tough to keep moving at that age like they once did. So shit. Sad, but it's the reality of it.
Hey, that's how it goes. Moving on, Chad Henne, legendary quarterback to 13 seasons with Miami, Jacksonville, Kansas City, and he retires a Super Bowl champ. The guy has, that's the best, right? The best life he could live.
Pretty much,
yeah,
man.
You can't ask for anything better there. Also, and not to be put down, $38 million of career earnings for our boy Chad Henne. Definitely fantastic. A few other names that are worth mentioning: Donta Hightower, 3-time Super Bowl champion with the Patriots. Devin McCourty, same there. Gerald McCoy, 6-time Pro Bowler, 2013 All-Pro. And I realized McCoy didn't get the championship with the Buccaneers. Oh. He left and they won. That blows. He gave them so many good years when they were dog shit. He leaves and they win. That was a really sad realization for me. JJ Watt, Hall of Famer, came out today. It was yesterday. Dan Patrick asked him, so it seemed like you were going to go to Green Bay at the end of your career. And he wouldn't comment on it.
Shame.
And everybody's like, damn, if there was only somebody that could take a slight pay cut to bring in a veteran that was making $60 million that year. And nope, not quite. So last but not least,
all right.
Last but not least, I do want to mention one of the best kickers of all time, Josh Lambo. Finishes 6th all-time in field goal percentage.
Wow.
Very impressive. Not going to be a Hall of Famer. Kickers really don't get in for the most part. And he's not really up there for like totals. But 6th all-time in field goal percentage is impressive over a very large body of work. I'm going to skip the rule changes. Honestly, I don't really care at this point. We don't need to go through them, because you know why, Joey? You know why we don't need to go through them? Because we have college football to touch on. Let's talk about 15 minutes of college football. We're going to blaze through this. We'll talk division by division. And honestly, I'm going to save the coaching carousel and our transfers for the divisions. Let's just talk on some storylines to keep this thing about 2 hours long, because surprise, surprise, brother. It took a little while to get through everything. And I am so excited talking football. I could talk for another 2 hours. But let's keep it within the parameters here of the sponsors. College football storylines. First one, probably the what's the word I'm looking for? Saddest, but also most like 2023 story is the Northwestern hazing scandal.
Oh yeah.
Not great. Hazing. I think, where did you go to college, Joey?
Well, we're not going to talk about that on this pod, but
right. Yeah. So anyways, Joey went to a bigger school. He knows so I went to like state schools, there weren't big fraternity things, or, our football team, like I played Division III football, wasn't a whole lot of hazing. You got pissed on in the shower every now and again. That was the worst you got. Some really nasty, weird shit coming out of Northwestern. They end up firing Pat Fitzgerald. Interesting. Pat Fitzgerald, probably the most prominent sports figure in that school's history, which is crazy to think about, considering they've never done shit, especially for football. Like, they've never once been there. But being Big Ten fans, we know Northwestern is not here to play sports. They're here to play school.
Right. definitely. Crazy story though, man. And yeah, definitely sad. I mean, he, like, came out of nowhere. It was the last thing a lot of people were expecting, and then it's like, oh shit, this is crazy. So yeah, that definitely dominated the headlines past few weeks, and rightfully so. That's a huge bombshell. But
and one thing I do want to say that was really impressive, and probably the most impressive thing out of it, this story was broke by student body journalists.
Correct.
Like, this wasn't like a ESPN investigation. Fox Sports didn't send out their A-team investigator guys. These were students in the school that, hey man, if you get this wrong, or if you piss off the wrong people, you're obviously not on the same totem pole as Pat Fitzgerald. But they knew they had a story. They did it the right way. And big shout out to those guys. I was a journalism major when I was in college for the short period of time that I was. And, that's the journalistic integrity that we really don't get anymore, which is very, very refreshing. So big shout out to those guys. Let's talk some more uplifting stuff and the more interesting things. But we had to talk about that one first because it really did dominate the cycle, especially recently. So, South Carolina's Shane Beamer, Texas A&M's Jimbo Fisher. These boys are alleging tampering is running wild in the days that you can pay college athletes. You want to talk about the most obvious fucking story that's ever came out? Like, yeah, we can offer them money. People cheated for years. You don't think they're going to cheat even when like the guidelines are open? You give a pig a pancake, he's going to want syrup. You give a pig a pancake and syrup, he's going to want some fucking milk there, Joey. I mean, this is crazy. I mean, to think that they have a foot to stand on, especially Jimbo. You want to tell me Jimbo Fisher at Florida State was running a straight and narrow program at Florida State with fucking Jameis Winston standing up yelling the C word at the top of his lungs, fucker right in the pussy and that weird shit, like stealing crab legs, feeling up Uber drivers. And now Jimbo is he's the social justice warrior for this.
Of course.
What are your thoughts? Is there anything in the NCAA right now? We're living in a little bit of the Wild West. I mean, there's no coaches. They can't stand on shit. They all play by the same rules now.
Yeah. There's a lot of just having their own asses. So that's what it all comes down to. A lot of guys covering their own asses in different ways. So it'll always be like that, man.
It sucks how political college football can be.
Yeah.
Because it is a lot of that stuff. It's posturing. It's making the right people happy, but it is what it is, and that's why we love it. Of
course.
Let's talk Colorado. Colorado, probably. What do you think? Probably the most exciting team. Most exciting. You got to say it's the most exciting, right?
I think there are other exciting teams. This is something that's kind of been just shoved in my face a little too much. And
that's such a fact. Actually, I take it back. You're 100% right. This is a manufactured.
I get it. I get the excitement, but I'm not really focusing on them. I'm focusing on the other teams, the other powerhouses, the other transfers, this and that. So maybe I'm in the minority there, but I don't really care that much for them yet until I see them.
Until they do something. I do. And
I'm watching them on Saturdays late night, and they're legit and they're fun and exhilarating, all that shit. I don't care, man, until I see it. So
now I never thought of it the way you just said it. Talk about Pac-12 at night getting interesting.
That is interesting. I'm glad you.
If I'm watching Shedeur Sanders in Colorado, like actually like ball with like Travis Hunter playing both ways, interesting. We'll talk more Colorado when we get into our Pac-12 breakdown. Let's talk about the probably dumbest story in college football. The NCAA is investigating Michigan, which, don't get me wrong, I hate Michigan. You hate Michigan. I think we both very much agree on that. They're looking at some recruiting violations that occurred during the COVID-19 dead period. Level 2 violations, whatever that means. Harbaugh is getting suspended for 4 games. Like the ultimate slap in the wrist. Sorry, boss, you cannot coach against Rutgers. Ouch. Talk about a nothing burger, right? I mean, this is something we've heard about for like the last maybe year and a half. And just in a world where there's a lot of news that doesn't matter, this was one story to me that just didn't matter.
Yeah, it was it had its moment for a few hours on Twitter,
Mm-hmm.
and then everyone was kind of shooting it down. So yeah, there wasn't much to it. Dude, I'm gonna jump in. Should we save the preview? Do you want to do another episode
As far as
for the conference previews?
oh yeah, conference previews, we'll do that another episode.
Oh, okay, cool. Because we're at 2 hours. I mean, we can edit this.
Oh yeah, 100%. We're good.
Yeah, because we can probably go on
so
like
we'll finish the college football storylines and that'll be it.
Sweet. Let's do it up. We can edit this.
All righty. Now we're gonna get to a few different stories. Realignment is right on the horizon. We see it coming. See it coming very soon. BYU, Central Florida, Cincinnati, and Houston. They are now in the Big 12. UCLA, USC, Texas, Oklahoma are playing their final seasons in the Pac-12 and the Big 12. As we move forward, you're in the Northeast. Now you have a different perspective. And I always kind of respect your guys' look on things because, and not to put this in a bad way, there's just not a lot of like powerhouse football teams in college in the Northeast. Not to say that there's not rich tradition in BC and obviously, even you could say Penn State, Ohio State's Northeast, good schools, but it just feels like, are we just going to get to mega conferences? Are we going to do just the Northeast, South, and West conference?
Yeah, it's interesting to think about because who knows in 5-10 years what it's going to look like. All I know is, watching Penn State and UCLA play at noon is going to look a little weird. So really just interesting to see, the West Coast teams coming over here. I don't know if you saw the graphic on Twitter. I think it's either UCLA or USC's travel for this upcoming season, and it is outrageous how much. I think it's USC. It's one of the two, but they're kicking things off.
Sure, it's nuts. It's probably USC. Where? Yeah, I'm assuming USC with like the fact that they play Notre Dame on like a home and home. I think they play an SEC on a home and home. But yeah, it's going to be really interesting. The travel's got to be, and as streamlined as travel is now, living on the East Coast, you hear about the travel issues. I mean, what's the future of that? Hard to say.
Right.
One story that we talked about previously, Iowa State. Iowa State has found themselves in bad standing, to say the least. The first name that gets dropped is Hunter Dekkers. Now, if you don't watch college football pretty intently or are a Big 12 or ISU fan, you probably don't know who Hunter Dekkers is. He did play for Iowa State last year. He used his parents' names and accounts to place 366 bets, including ISU games, totaling just under $2,800. That's nuts. What are your thoughts on using it? I mean, that's got to be the least creative way to do it, right?
Yeah. So this is what I was bringing up before about the kicker, because he's a kicker, right?
Right.
And Twitter was having its day here because a lot of people were posting, play-by-plays of his games this past year, and there were a lot of
sure. That's the worst thing. The worst thing that could happen if you get caught gambling is Twitter's going to dissect your film, and they're going to find every single play. It looks like you quit, or you may have, looks like he may have thought one thing was it's going to be a fucking mess.
Yeah. So, I mean, using his parents, that's a crazy move. I think that, I'm thinking that like most people who do it and get away with it, they probably use their friends' accounts, right? Using the parents.
You have so many friends. You're a college football player, and even find somebody that you're not friends, just a random dude who's like never gonna bet on sports. But these guys, they're not that smart. They're college kids. Look at us back think about you betting back when you were in college, 21, 22 years old.
Right.
I'm thinking back to that. I had one guy that I went to, and I mean, that was it, really. I mean, it wasn't like I wasn't trying to conceal shit. I didn't care who knows. And if you're a football player and you always didn't really you weren't super careful. And then all of a sudden, and I don't think anything, that's the other thing I want to say about this. To anyone that thinks that anything nefarious is happening here, not a fucking chance. What the fuck is he going to do with $2,800 on 366 bets? He was placing parlays. The average, I averaged it out the other night. It was $7 a bet. I mean, you're not telling me this guy's doing $5 units. He's just doing fucking same game parlays.
That was showed too, I think.
It was?
I have to get it, but it was the average bet and all this whole breakdown of everything. It was pretty interesting to see. It was, I think it was like $7.31 per bet, something crazy like that.
It doesn't make sense for the fact that you're a quarterback and a starting quarterback at that, and a guy that can influence. Trust me, as a guy that played quarterback growing up, if I wanted to, I could throw a game and I could probably make it look like I'm not throwing a game, just holding on to the ball a little bit longer. And it just didn't seem like he was doing this. I think he was dicking around more often than not, and as you and I both know.
So I'm getting my stories very mixed up. And it's all in the state of Iowa. So you're right.
Oh, God.
Iowa kicker.
Oh, no.
Aaron Blom is accused of placing 170 different bets totaling $4,400.
Oh, dude. No. The kicker did not out bankroll the quarterback one. No, he didn't.
And then Deckers is the Iowa State quarterback. Again, right. I don't know what the fuck is going on in Iowa, but they got to figure their shit out.
I told you before we got on, I've gone to multiple Super Bowls down at the Iowa FanDuel Sportsbook. It's not far from Iowa State. It's not far from Iowa. There are sports books everywhere, and they are all legal online. It's so accessible in Iowa. It's crazy. And people think they can get away with it. They can't, because they're not that smart. These kids are fucking stupid. And they're getting caught left and right. And you said it in the very beginning, 2 hours ago, right when we started talking. You're obviously, how many more of these guys are going to get caught? Because the NCAA is only going to get better at investigating it. The NFL is only going to get better investigating it. They're not just going to look at you. They're going to look at your friends. They're going to look at, anybody that could be associated to you's account, because, and I'm surprised we've got guys that are placing bets. We don't have guys that are proxying information. That's where I start deviating from. All right, these guys are degenerate gamblers. They're not looking to hit it big, versus the guy that's transmitting information, to a mob guy or somebody that can move the market a little bit offshore. And I know, and we've seen videos that still happens in college basketball, like low level Division I.
Right.
It goes out to the club, gets offered a 10 grand bag. And I mean, he's not going to turn it down. I mean, you got to keep it within X points, but the fact that it's this many Iowa guys, you got to keep an eye on Iowa. I mean, it's crazy.
Wherever the regulators are, Iowa, zone in on that.
I was born in Iowa. Iowa is very similar to Wisconsin. It's a lot of tribal stuff, like a lot of Indian tribal areas. And in Wisconsin, gaming is only allowed to those tribes. So Iowa, it's state ran. So I know there's a little bit of they don't like each other. And I don't know. It's crazy. It's one of those things that you never would think, out of all the states and teams that would get intertwined in this, it's the Iowa schools.
It's crazy. I hear you. You'd think, I don't know. Now that it's accessible everywhere and it's legal.
Right. And it could be anybody. And the fact that we only know it's Iowa guys right now, maybe that was the one thing they were investigating. Maybe in September, it ends up being Vanderbilt. You know what I mean? It's hard to say.
Maybe they just chose a random state and said, you know what, there's going to be some sketchy shit going on in Iowa.
Well, and hey, if you're going to talk about a state that no one's going to think about, legalized gambling, that's why we go down there for the Super Bowl, because there ain't nobody there.
In the middle of the country too. Maybe they just said, let's just start in the middle and then branch out from there.
Yeah, branch out, move to the coast.
That we don't know, but it's what's on our mind. So
it is. But
it's interesting to see where this is all headed. What else is going to come out?
Right. Absolutely. I mean, it's hard not to think about it. So that's going to do it for college football right now. We're going to leave the transfer portal stuff because we did go 2 hours. We thought we'd go an hour. Jokes on us. We went
were
2 hours. Surprise, surprise. We're going to try to keep it around an hour for our normal shows. Obviously, going through the off season with the amount of stuff that was going on, longer show. But before we get out of here, I do want to talk because, brother, we got football tomorrow. We have football with lines that we are allowed to gamble on.
Wow. Hall of Fame. Man.
The Hall of Fame game, we get Zach Wilson against Kellen Mond, who beat out Dorian Thomas-Robinson, which surprising to see he beat him out for the number 2 spot. The Jets are laying 1.5 as of this afternoon. I don't know if you got the live odds up there or not. 33.5 point total. My number one question is preseason betting a good thing? Who's to say?
I think if you're betting preseason, and I'm not an advisor, I'm not a doctor.
I'm not a doctor, but I play one on TV.
And you should do a little bit of research on the Baltimore Ravens preseason football history because they're great against the spread. And that's all I'm going to say because, I mean, I may throw something out there here and there, but if I'm betting tomorrow, my money's on Zach Wilson. I haven't given up on him. I know it's crazy, but he wants to prove something. And my advice is to take the Jets.
I don't. Maybe we'll squad. Should we squad ride the Jets? That'd be really funny.
So
I think we got to do it.
I have not gambled in 3 I gambled Monday and Tuesday. I put one baseball bet in each day. Prior to that, I took a 3-week break. That was my longest break ever. And it was very nice, very much needed. It was like the lull of the summer, the whole baseball getting to you. And it was very nice. Now I'm ready to go. I'm ready to, hop back on the saddle here. I don't know 100%. If I'm going to bet tomorrow's game, but I say that now it's less than 24 hours away. And I'll be tuning in. So
I'm gonna get like that. I'm gonna get the Dave Chappelle, Tyrone Biggums, like I'm gonna bet some preseason football. You got that preseason football on you?
got any more of those first touchdown scores? Yeah.
You got any more of those first touchdown scores? That's something we are gonna have a lot of fun with this year. There's a lot of stuff we're gonna have fun with this year, and that was 2 hours. For those that listened all the way through, God bless you. DM me the word banana and I'll Venmo you $20 because I doubt anybody got to this point. If they did, God bless them. But we'll obviously splice up all these episodes. Like I said, you can catch everything now on Spotify, Amazon, Stitcher, all this fun stuff. I'm going to have the whole list. iHeartRadio. Can't forget that. My dad, you want to talk about moving the needle? My dad didn't give a shit about any of this. And I said the words iHeartRadio, and his ears just go, whoo. He's such an old guy. Such an old guy.
Love it.
But yeah, man, very good first day out. We're going to do this every Thursday. Get those things cranked out for the preseason.
Sure.
Like I said, Ben Carey next week. Ben Carey joining the program. Get a little more in depth in the AFC West.
Oh, yeah.
And we'll talk a little more college football. We got the ACC coming next week. I think I'm going to do ACC. Maybe we'll get into the Big 12. Kind of depends on how much time I got. But regardless, we'll get through the Power 5 before we start the season. Joey, anything before we head out, my brother?
Okay, man, it's been great. This is going to be so fun every week, recording on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, whenever we do it. But so keep tuning in, everyone, on Thursdays. I'm excited to talk to Ben and the others we have coming up. So welcome back, man. Welcome back.
Football is back. No doubt about it. All right. We'll talk to everybody later. Thank you so much for listening. As always, peace out to that.
Of course.